Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months.
Yo to Bolt fam, it's the director. Chargers fans, you guys ready for maybe the most important video you're going to watch on the Chargers in the last several weeks, man? Dude, this may be one of the most dramatic and insane coaching cycles I have ever seen, even in my lifetime. Maybe the most insane that we'll see in a very, very long time. It just so happens that the Chargers do have a head coach vacancy coming up this offseason. Honestly, it's coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Okay, I would say maybe even sooner than that. I would say in the 5 to 10 days, we should probably hear some big news about the Chargers and who their next head coach could be. I think a lot of us have been following the narrative of Jim Harbaugh to the Chargers the last several weeks. I'd say about the last month, especially after this man went out and won that national championship just days ago. He's been taking some time for himself to enjoy the moment, as he put it, and start weighing his options, whether or not he wants to come to the NFL or remain in Michigan. And the Chargers seem to be the top destination for Jim Harbaugh if he were to make the transition. However, that is not a guaranteed move for the Chargers. I know a lot of Chargers fans, myself included, would be kind of let down and disappointed if this move did not happen. But honestly, this is such an insane season in terms of available head coaches that I think the Chargers could still be fine if this ends up falling through. So in this video today, we're going to be going over my top 10 head coach candidates for the Chargers. Yes, Jim Harbaugh included. And why it's probably a good idea to be well-versed with all of these guys, because yes, there is a version where the Chargers, let's say, miss out on Jim Harbaugh, let's say he goes back to Michigan, but we still win the hire with a leader going into the future. Now, before we get started, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Get in on the action. Use code DIRECTOR to match your first deposit up to $100, and newcomers get in on this special for Sunday. Matt Stafford with over half a yard. I think a lot of us would expect that to be the case. Before we kick off, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. Short amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, bell notification. Helps me out a lot. Help me get the 50K this year, and I'll be a happy director. With that, let's get into it. Lights, camera,
Action!
my top 10 head coach candidates for the Los Angeles Chargers in 2024. And honestly, guys, this season kind of makes the pain of the last couple of seasons feel worth it. Let me explain. Okay, I know the Brandon Staley situation that we all suffered through as Chargers fans was absolutely tragic. Okay, some of the worst experiences I've had as a fan came in the last 2 years under his leadership. However, okay, this has led to a season where the Chargers now do have a coaching vacancy. By hanging on to Staley an extra season, the Chargers do have an opportunity to go pick from maybe the best amount of names I've seen in terms of head coaches in a long time, maybe ever. Okay, sure, there are rumors floating around that, Jim Harbaugh wanted the job last season, and because we held on to Brandon Staley, that didn't happen. But who knows, man? Who knows what would have happened, okay? And even if Jim Harbaugh doesn't work out this season, there's a lot of really big names I know a lot of Chargers fans would be, at least myself, very excited about. Don't worry, Chargers fans. I still do think in terms of odds, Jim Harbaugh is by far and away the leader in terms of who the next head coach could be for the Bolts. Last time I even checked in terms of like betting odds, which honestly, that's where people bet their money, right? That's kind of where Vegas is putting it on. We know those guys know something that we don't. I think right now he's at a minus 160 or 180 or something like that. Pretty intense. I think it's 160. And the next guy is at like plus 700. So a very dramatic difference in who they think the next head coach of the Chargers is going to be. But who knows what's going to happen, right? The future is always very unclear. So let's go ahead and start opening up the book in terms of what I think the top 10 head coaching candidates for the Chargers could be. And some of these options that if it does turn out to be the case for the Bolts in the next couple of weeks, why we should maybe be a little bit excited. Some of the upside with some of these guys, okay? And of course, not every coaching candidate's going to be on here, but if we can hit on one of these top 10 guys, I think I'll mostly be okay. Let's try and hit inside the top 5. So let's go ahead here at number 10 with the Chargers in terms of potential head coaches, we're going to go ahead and list Bobby Slowick, offensive coordinator of the Houston Texans. Now, yes, I am a little bit worried about going the same route that we have the last several seasons. In my time of being a fan, haven't seen a lot of established head coaches take the reins and do a good job with their experience and leadership. We've often gone with these younger guys, unproven guys at the head coaching position, and more often than not, it's blown up in our faces. Well, is Bobby Slowick going to break that trend if the Chargers decide to go that way? I guess he could, but it still is a shot in the dark, and why he's number 10 on my list ultimately. Now, that doesn't say that he's a terrible hire. He wouldn't be my favorite, but he does make the list for me. Now, a big reason for that is because he does fall under the coveted Shanahan tree. And of course, a lot of teams in the NFL are trying to get a slice of that right now. Of course, we're talking about the Shanahan, system ran with the San Francisco 49ers. That's been a wildly successful system for a long time in terms of offenses. It's turned guys like Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo into superstars. Imagine what it could do for an established quarterback like Justin Herbert. Matter of fact, he took the best, in my opinion, quarterback in the draft this last season and turned him into likely the offensive rookie of the year. Yes, C.J. Stroud, we know, had a lot of talent, but I do think I give a lot of credit to Bobby Slowick and his innovation in bringing C.J. Stroud closer to that title, and ultimately, I would say a very successful season for the Houston Texans. You know how hard it is to take an organization like Houston and turn them around in one season from irrelevance to what we see nowadays, and I do think the offense deserves most of the credit there, and the man at the helm there was Bobby Slowick. He's got a deep understanding of player talent. He helped guys break out like Nico Collins and certainly Tank Dell, who's definitely going to be a keeper in my fantasy league next season. He had great utilization of guys like Schultz and Singletary and even Damian Pierce. That offense just looked like it was unstoppable this season behind a lot of young talent, mind you. And the Chargers, they really do need this attention to detail on offense. Sure, Kellen Moore could still work out. If Kellen Moore ends up being the offensive coordinator next season, I certainly wouldn't be upset about that. But Slowick would create a very stable system for this team. So for that reason, I'm going to put him at number 10. Not my favorite option, but we had to put him on the list here of the top 10. Next up, at number 9, the Los Angeles Chargers in contention for their head coaching position. We're going to go ahead and throw it back to an oldie but goodie. And Frank Smith, offensive coordinator for Miami at the moment. And yes, this would be a reunited kind of situation. Of course, we're seeing him in Chargers garb right here. That's because just a couple of seasons ago, he was with the Chargers organization. And I say, sure, right, why not? Maybe some familiarity there would help smooth the transition over a little bit. Now, one big thing that I'm hearing a lot in terms of maybe not hiring Frank Smith at this time is that he doesn't actually call the offensive plays for the Miami Dolphins. Of course, that responsibility is held by their head coach at the time. But I will say this, man, this dude's not sitting in their offices doing nothing, right? He does have a job with the team. And that job specifically is designing these plays, man. Yes, he works very, very closely in designing these plays for Miami and their execution and the way that they're brought into the team in practice, et cetera, et cetera. He, I do think, deserves a lot more credit for the success the Miami Dolphins have had in offense than he's getting. And if you take a look at what Miami's been doing, man, he's helped shape one of the most lethal offenses in the entirety of the league. That offense is dangerous. They kind of remind me, when I face that team, they kind of remind me in a lot of ways of how we used to feel about facing the Kansas City Chiefs in their real heyday. Sure, they're still a dangerous team, the Chiefs are, but man, they felt unstoppable. Maybe it was the Tyreek Hill effect. Now they have a bunch of speed all over that team in the Miami Dolphins. It's pretty crazy what that's transformed into. And you know what? If anything, if the Chargers decide to go with Frank Smith, we're probably going to draft speed like crazy in the next couple of seasons, maybe sign speed as well. And that's something the Chargers have really been wanting. But I would say in terms of the offense, his forte, at least with the Chargers, was certainly shaping an elite offensive line, taking pieces that maybe shouldn't fit and making them really work and protecting a guy like Justin Herbert. And honestly, I think it would be a good option to build around with Justin Herbert. So if we're going to be going back to, offensive-minded guy in terms of fresh out of the coordinator pool into the head coaching pool, you could certainly do a lot worse than Frank Smith. All right. Now at number 8, and I'm going to be honest, guys, I may have been peer pressured into this one. Okay, but I had to include him because let's not be too biased. We're going to talk about Sir Dan Quinn, defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. And this is the first defensive coordinator on my list. Honestly, I will still say this. I'm not the biggest fan of this idea, okay? But the rumors are swirling. I think the Chargers have already requested an interview with Dan Quinn, and I can't deny that there's some upside with this hire. He has had a resurgence in terms of defensive play calling with the Dallas Cowboys. He really has. That defense has looked absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. And if there's any other upside to have, it's that he does have head coaching experience. Sure, he's responsible for one of the worst Super Bowl losses in maybe NFL history, but hey, man, he got him there, I guess. Still, a big reason why I'm including him on this is because of the experience, is because, yes, he did lead a Falcons team behind an aging Matt Ryan to the Super Bowl, and there are indicators that he's in play for the Chargers. Still, I'm not super convinced he is the guy. His defenses haven't always been good, and the Chargers feel like they would really, really benefit a lot by hiring an offensive-minded guy, and it's an even bigger bonus if we go after a guy that has head coaching experience too. So Dan Quinn, I'm going to include him on this list. He's certainly not my favorite. Maybe I should have put him at number 10 if I'm being honest. But the rumors are swirling, and I can't deny there's some upside. So got to wait and see how that one shapes out. All right. At number 7, we got another name on this list that actually has been swirled around the Chargers the last couple of seasons, certainly around its fans, and one that I think would be a solid option. Honestly, I kind of don't know why Eric Bieniemy, offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders, hasn't had a head coaching opportunity yet. I'm really wondering why. And that's probably one of the biggest things drawing me back from being like, hey, man, he needs to be higher on this list, is because why hasn't he taken a head coach position yet? It's because he's not the kind of personality that could lead a football team fully as a head coach. He's more of just an offensive guy. Or is there something else going on behind the scenes? I don't know. Either way, Bieniemy, in my opinion, one of the brightest offensive minds in the NFL right now. He's an offensive genius, this guy. And he's just about ready and groomed, in my opinion, for a head coaching job if he wasn't before. I think most recently, obviously, offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders. He is also assistant head coach right now, I do believe. And hey, we'll call it the job shadowing, the internship for the next opportunity to be. And if that ends up being the Chargers head coach, honestly, I don't know if I would be too upset about that. Now, a lot of us know him in terms of head coaching candidacy from the last coaching hire with the Chargers. We're looking at this guy saying, hey, man, this dude's doing wonders with the Kansas City Chiefs. And yes, formerly of the Kansas City Chiefs, he helped shape one of the most perfect offenses out of the gate for one of the brightest future quarterbacks in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes. And some would even credit his system for Mahomes' monster success at the time. Because in 2024, Mahomes saw one of his worst seasons after Bieniemy left for Washington. Isn't that crazy? Bieniemy with the Kansas City Chiefs last season left, goes to Washington this last season, and Patrick Mahomes throws for 1,000 less yards, like 14 or 15 less touchdowns. Wow, that is certainly something to be looked at. And maybe, just maybe, Bieniemy had more to do with it than we all thought. Meanwhile, Bieniemy, who looks at not greener or brighter pastures in Washington, but another challenge, is helping boost numbers for guys like Sam Howell, of all players. And that's ridiculous, dude. Sam freaking Howell is putting up ridiculous numbers. What was he? Howell, I think, was just short 54 yards of a 4,000-yard season. Sam freaking Howell, y'all, threw for 4,000 yards this season. I can barely wrap my mind around that. And meanwhile, you see his other playmakers like Terry McLaurin have a solid 1,000-yard season. The run game looks nice and healthy. I don't know, man. Washington is a mess of a team. They really are. They're going to be a top 3 pick for a reason. But Bieniemy's talents had shown through anyway, which tells me that the quality of what he does is for real. And what he could do behind a Justin Herbert-led offense is especially exciting to think about. So Eric Bieniemy is going to make the list for me at number 7. All right. At number 6, and this may end up being the most controversial name on this list because of where he's placed. I think everybody's heard this name. Everybody agrees with this name, but we have him here at number 6. It's going to be Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. Okay. Now, again, some people are going to hate how low I have Ben Johnson on this list. And to be fair, I think he would be a great hire for the Chargers. Okay, I do think I have him too low on this list. And I'll explain why here in a little bit. And the best, I think, option for the Chargers, if they decide to go with another coordinator, is by far and away going to be Ben Johnson, okay? I think the obvious narrative here, when you look at his career and you look especially at the last couple of seasons, is Ben Johnson's ability to turn a mediocre or maybe even underperforming offense into a real contender, a real threat in the league. What he's done with the Detroit Lions in the last 2 seasons has been nothing short of unreal, right? The last 2 years with Jared Goff, the last 2 years with, guys like DeAndre Swift, et cetera, it's been unbelievable. And it happened right away, like right off the bat. Ben Johnson took an underperforming Lions offense and turned him into a top 5 unit back-to-back seasons. This isn't a one-and-done thing, man. This isn't the Brandon Staley, hey, he led the best defense in the league, let's go hire him for a head coach position. No, he did this 2 seasons in a row. Johnson took an underperforming Lions offense, turned him into, finishing 4th in 2022 and 3rd in 2023 is outrageous. This dude's got some serious talent. His offense, as a matter of fact, this year was so good that he finished second in passing and 5th in running in the same year. That's bonkers. And yeah, some would say that they are worried about new hires. That's the biggest, I would say, knock against Ben Johnson that I've seen, is that, Chargers fans, we want to get somebody with experience, head coaching experience, somebody who knows how to run the show. And I would agree. A lot of us do want that. And I think that would be a very big, cherry on top for this whole thing. However, I think the biggest misconception that I'm hearing around him is that he's just another Brandon Staley, but on the offensive side of the ball. We don't want another Brandon Staley. I have to argue with that being not true, okay? I must. Because Ben Johnson, he's accomplished these feats with a much less talented roster, and he did so in back-to-back years, okay? Jared Goff was not viewed as a top 10 quarterback 3 years ago. He was not. The Lions offense was a mess, okay? And it continued to be a mess. Yeah, they brought in some nice players, especially Amon-Ra St. Brown, et cetera, but how much did Ben Johnson have to do with that emergence? I think a lot. And you take a look at what Brandon Staley did in 2020 with the Rams defense. They had Jalen Ramsey. They had Aaron freaking Donald. They had Leonard Floyd. They had Michael Brockers. They had a ton of huge talent on their roster. Was it also... Von Miller, was he on that team that year? Just ridiculous amounts of talents. Of course, there was a good shot that he leads one of the best defenses in the league. Ben Johnson didn't have near that talent. And he has done wonders in the last 2 seasons back-to-back. So of the young candidates available this year, Johnson is by far and away my number 1 option. And I do think that the Chargers and its fans, even if we miss out on like a Jim Harbaugh, would be very lucky to have Ben Johnson running the show in LA. All right. Now getting into the top 5, okay? And this is where the explanation of the Ben Johnson ranking comes into play, okay? At number 5, I've got the Chargers being very wise to pursue this man, this legend, in Pete Carroll, okay? And right now, this is just a rumor. And if you remove the rumors, of course, Ben Johnson is going to go higher on the list. Now, a lot of you will probably say, I don't think Pete Carroll is going to be up for a head coaching position this season. Many of you are probably going to be saying, isn't he coaching with the Seattle Seahawks? For those of you who don't know, Pete Carroll was relieved of his coaching duties by the Seahawks, I think just yesterday. Another legend of the game moving on from that position, which is really crazy, guys, in the last couple of days. Now, recently, I would say in the last even few hours, we've read, and I actually had to add Pete Carroll's list or name to this list because of what I was reading while doing research on the other coaches. It seems that Pete Carroll is open to pretty much anything in terms of coming back to coaching, and that he fought very hard to continue coaching the Seattle Seahawks. He doesn't want to be done. Yes, he's older, 71-ish, 72, I don't know, something like that. We don't know the longevity and what it's going to look like there, but it doesn't seem like he's done. Okay? And the rumors have kind of already started as to whether or not he should go to the Chargers. Richard Sherman, one of the best players ever to play with Pete Carroll, said that the Chargers is a match that needs to happen. Pete Carroll would change the culture and put more people in seats than ever before. I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Pete Carroll will be a huge move. But what would it look like? What does Pete Carroll look like as an option realistically for the Chargers? Well, on the surface, at first glance, right? I see a defensive-minded head coach, okay? And let's be honest here. He's not had the best defense since the Legion of Boom dissolved, okay? It's been a while. And I think to myself, just again, on the surface, even when I started hearing about maybe he can come to the Chargers, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want another one of those. An underperforming defensive-minded head coach. But then you take a look at his track record. You take a look at things outside of that. You take a look at his leadership and what he's done as a whole for his football team, and you think, whoa. Carroll, who was hired, back in 2010? He's made the postseason 10 times in his 14-year career with Seattle. 10 times. He's got 10 playoff wins, 5 NFC West titles, and a Super Bowl championship in that time. This dude is a winner. And yes, maybe he shouldn't be labeled a defensive guy anymore because his defense really hasn't been great since like 2017. But his teams are just great. His teams are just put together so well. They perform where in areas that matter as a whole, as a balanced unit, right? And it's absolutely fantastic to see, even with guys like, Geno Smith and maybe a struggling Russell Wilson, what he's been able to put together. Only going under, 503 times in his time with Seattle, and a couple of those times were with some of these struggling quarterbacks. I don't know, man. Pete Carroll, to me, don't think of him as the defensive guy anymore. Think of him as the culture builder, the winner. Pete Carroll is a winner. He really is. And yes, the Seattle roster hasn't looked good the last couple of seasons. He's done well despite that. Again, imagine what he could do in taking control of a team like the Chargers. Now, again, it's just a rumor, but I had to put him in number 5 because if he does become available, and from what we're hearing, he actually may be available here in the coming days or weeks, it's a name that really needs to be near the top of the list for the Chargers. Yes, he's older. Yes, there's things to be a little concerned about, but Pete Carroll is Pete Carroll, man. And I think he would be a hell of a leader for this team. All right? Speaking of maybe a little bit older, but not obsolete, let's move into the number 4. And again, it may be another controversial name that we see on this list. I don't care. We got Bill Belichick, head coach of the or I should say former head coach of the New England Patriots. Here it is, Bull fam. My flack pick. I get it. There's going to be a lot of hate here. A lot of people are already off the Bill Belichick idea. I have to tell you guys, if I'm being honest with you, okay, I'm going to put myself out there and say I'm still a believer in Bill Belichick. I really am. Okay, many have wiped Bill completely off their list because of the wild talk of dysfunction in New England under his watch. And sure, it's shaken me as well. It really has. A lot of concerning talk in terms of the dysfunction of the guys that he brought in. He brought in, I think, his son and people he knew after the Tom Brady era had ended, and it created a big mess. It really did in New England. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to try and hide that. He did. He created a mess out there. But let's be honest, man. Take a step back. Dang, dude. This is Bill Belichick we're talking about. Like maybe the best head coach in NFL history. I would say so. I personally will never live to see a better coach in my lifetime, a more winning head coach in my lifetime. Maybe the magic chemistry was there for a time with New England. Maybe it was all Tom Brady. Who knows? But this is Bill Belichick that we're talking about. 6-time Super Bowl winner. And in my opinion, he still got it. Okay? A lot of people using, maybe those narratives to wipe away all the good that Bill Belichick could bring to a team, an organization, a system. There's a lot of good still there, dude. Bill, I think, is fairly labeled as a defensive-minded head coach, which, again, we want an offensive guy, but there's some exceptions here, and Bill is absolutely that for me. And he puts his money where his mouth is. Bill Belichick has led a top half, if not top 10 defense for like 99% of his career, man. And that career spans, 20-something years? Dude's been in the league a long time. Just in the last 3 seasons, if you guys want proof in the pudding, what about here and now? His defense ranked 7, 8, and 4 in the last 3 seasons. What? This team looked like it was in complete dysfunction, underperforming, very, very poor win-loss record the last 3 seasons since Tom Brady left, yet the defense has still thrived. And sure, he's got some serious concerns. I get that. His age, how long would he have to build a Super Bowl culture in LA? 3 years, maybe 5. His offense fell apart after Brady left. Sure, the offense really did suck. But guess what? There are no quarterback concerns in Los Angeles. Bill would instantly lead a top 5 quarterback. So that's already a good situation to be in, and maybe makes those 3 or 5 years of Bill Belichick that much more valuable. Just imagine what this team would look like if Justin Herbert had any sort of defensive help. This last Brandon Staley era has been some of the worst defensive football I've seen in a long time for the Chargers. Imagine if Justin Herbert didn't have to carry this team every single year. And instead, the defense is helping carry him with a top 5D instantly with the Bill Belichick signing. Now, probably the biggest thing that I see here that Chargers fans say I don't want Bill Belichick for is because of, yes, the GMing duties is a little intimidating. Bill is lousy at drafting, I would say. I don't know what he looks like as a GM outside of that, but as a drafter, he looks pretty bad. And it's probably the biggest gripe everyone has against the guy, and I get it. But recently, Belichick has admitted that he would give up control of front office duties to keep on coaching for the New England Patriots, to keep on coaching, period. And even though Robert Kraft came out and said, well, we don't want to cause any waves by demoting anybody, it would make it weird in the office, right? It makes him a much more interesting candidate if he were to just lead an NFL team, not name the Patriots. If he were to leave the Patriots and just go coach, not touching the GMing duties, I think that became a possibility in the last week or so because of that statement of Bill Belichick saying, I'm willing to let that side to the side and just do this job. What was his mantra for the longest time? Do your job. Do your job. And if the next team that he goes to just wants him to be a head coach, he will do his job. Because in the end, dude, this man has 6 Super Bowl wins to his name, and I can't help but feel like sweeping him under the rug because of the GMing things and the age and all that kind of stuff is a product of overthinking it. This is still Bill friggin' Belichick. And for that, he's going to be number 4 on my list. All right? And number 3, sorry, a little bit longer of a video, but we got some important stuff to go over today, man. At number 3, top 3 for the director. Who's going to be cracking the top 3 here? Well, it's going to come into the form of another rumor here, okay? It's going to be Mike Tomlin. And again, now that you see the rumors, if we were to remove the rumors, Ben Johnson's a top 5 guy for me. I think number 4, okay? But Mike Tomlin needed to be on this list, okay? Tomlin, as of right now, is a rumor. And honestly, I don't know how much water it holds, okay? There's a lot of talk about it at the end of the last season. Maybe less talk about it as we're getting into the new coaching hires. He came back, put up another winning record this season. I think he went, 10 wins in this year in particular behind Pickett and those guys is especially impressive. I don't know if it's going to be the case anymore. I think the Pete Carroll rumor is much more likely in terms of him moving on to a different team. But if Tomlin were available, he's instantly a huge name to add to everybody's lists, not just the Chargers. This is a legend, living legend of the game right now in terms of head coaching. Yes, Tomlin, funny enough, if you were to think about it, he is another defensive guy, sure. He's really excelled at every level, man, when putting together a football team. Look what he did with the freaking Kenny Pickett offense this year, man. If this guy had a quarterback like Big Ben, if they were able to hit in the last couple of years in terms of quarterback, I think we'd be looking at a much different Pittsburgh Steelers right now. As a matter of fact, his ability to go over 500 every single season is probably the only reason they don't have a quarterback right now. Isn't that insane? I think that's pretty insane. And again, his greatest accomplishment so far, I think, is obvious and well known. He is a winner. That 500 stat that we keep talking about, that's over the span of the last 17 years, y'all. 17 years of being a winning head coach. I'm sure that's the longest streak in the league. Maybe in NFL history, I wouldn't be shocked to hear that. Absolutely incredible by Mike Tomlin. And in that time, he's gone 173 wins to, I think, 99 losses. No, 100 losses. 100 losses. With 8 postseason wins and a Super Bowl victory to his name, Mike Tomlin is the real deal. He just screams winner in the NFL. And his influence over the defense especially will even things out for Justin Herbert real quick. I don't know, man. Mike Tomlin just seems like the complete package. He's a winner. He's got the culture. He's got the understanding of the offense as well as an outstanding understanding of the defense. This would be a home run hire by the Chargers if it were to go down that way. All right? Now moving on to number 2. I think a lot of you guys probably know where I'm going at with this number 2 pick. See, I think you certainly know who I have at number 1. At number 2, for the head coaching position of the Chargers, we're going to throw in the hat, shockingly, Mike Vrabel, former head coach of the Tennessee Titans. Talk about a wild coaching cycle, Bolt fam. Never in my wildest dreams, nobody saw the firing of Mike Vrabel coming this season, dude. What in the heck happened in Tennessee? Who slapped whose mama? How did this end up happening? Because Mike Vrabel is one heck of a coaching candidate, and one that has got to be at the top of everybody's list this offseason, or I should say this coaching hire cycle. It's absolutely insane to me. And what's crazier is that I saw Vrabel as a lock-in coach for the New England Patriots, right? I was like, oh, obviously they're moving on from Bill, and maybe Vrabel's moving on from the Patriots because we want to see that, that opportunity taken in New England. And this morning when I was kind of going through some of the news, it seems that New England has already hired their guy. It's going to be Jared Mayo, who's been groomed for the head coach position this entire time. So Vrabel is kind of wide open to go wherever. And that does include the Chargers. Now, since being hired, if you guys want some, you're like, well, who's this Vrabel guy? Well, Vrabel, and again, the Titans, maybe not the most well-respected team in the league right now. Let me tell you why Vrabel is a great head coach despite that. He was hired in 2018, and since then, he has led some of the best football Tennessee has seen in 10 years with the Titans. That organization was a dumpster fire for like a decade before Vrabel came in and took over. Yes, Vrabel is another defensive guy. I know we've seen a lot of those on here despite wanting an offensive guy. But man, he leads some great offenses too. I love what he does in terms of building an offense for his quarterback, which really helped bring back the career of Ryan Tannehill there for a little while. Because behind guys like Derrick Henry, a solid run game, he always had decent options at receiver as well. It's been a nice offensive program there in Tennessee. He leads some great offense. But he's also built a very strong, balanced foundation for his team, which made, 3 consecutive playoff appearances from 2019 to 2021? They instantly turned it around, man. In terms of turning it around instantly, the biggest thing that we're excited about a potential Jim Harbaugh hire, Mike Vrabel does it very, very well, too. Now, yes, I will say his team has fallen off the last 2 years with a declining Ryan Tannehill. He was brought back to life, but Ryan Tannehill getting older, obviously declining. The Titans were just about to change, though, which blows my mind here. They're seeing some hope behind rookie sensation Will Levis, a quarterback, and all of a sudden they decide to get rid of Mike Vrabel. Why did you do this, Titans? This will probably be one of the biggest regrets in that program's history. Why get rid of Mike Vrabel at that time? Probably the biggest red flag I have at the moment, too. What happened? Why is he gone? Either way, now he's available, and he's going to be highly pursued by all NFL programs in the league. His leadership, his team building, it's top notch. Sure, some people would say he could be a little bit intense, a little bit tough. But I sure as heck think he would bring a strong, solid, tough culture to the Chargers, which we desperately need at this time. But Mike Vrabel, he's got the experience. He's got the results. I don't know, man. He's got the ability to turn around a team on a dime. It feels like a great option for the Chargers if they were to go this route. And it's going to be a name that a lot of teams are going to be pursuing here in the next couple of days, maybe even a couple of weeks, okay? Now, to round out this list, may not take as much time on this name. You guys know who's coming right here. It's going to be Jim Harbaugh, head coach of the Michigan Wolverines, recent national championship winner in Jim Harbaugh. You guys know the spiel here, okay? If you want a detailed list as to why Jim Harbaugh is by far and away the best option for the Chargers, go watch my video covering Jim Harbaugh. There's a couple of them, okay? Why Jim Harbaugh to the Chargers is likely going to happen. Go watch that one. But in short, okay, a couple of reasons you want Jim Harbaugh. He's a unicorn, right? What he does is almost exclusive to him. Yes, Mike Vrabel has a version of that in turning around bad teams quickly. Nobody has the track record that Jim Harbaugh has, though. Spanning all the way back to Stanford and San Diego, this dude was able to take a struggling program and turn them around on a dime. Stanford, worst to first, right? The San Francisco 49ers, worst to first. And these are programs that struggled for like a better part of a decade, dudes. Michigan from worst to first, now national champions. Like, it's insane to see what Jim Harbaugh has specialized in, the last 20 years of his head coaching career. It's been wild. And the rumors swirling around Jim Harbaugh to the Chargers are very strong. He currently leads the Chargers in terms of the most likely head coach to come to Los Angeles and lead this team. I think, again, it was minus 160 against plus 700. The next guy being, I think, was Ben Johnson, right? It's wild to think what this man's going to do or could do in Los Angeles if he is hired. And honestly, it could usher in finally a Chargers Super Bowl era for however long Coach Harbaugh decides to stay with the team. Really. We could see the biggest turnaround and the biggest results in the shortest amount of time ever in franchise history under the leadership of Coach Harbaugh. And honestly, guys, news of this should be coming in the next, 5 to 10 days. It should be very, very, very swift here. And again, if we all had our pick right now, if you said, hey, director, who do you want out of this list of coaches? Yes, there's a lot of great names on this list. Yes, there's guys that I would be very happy with, but none of them even come close to sniffing a Jim Harbaugh to me. It's Jim Harbaugh, huge gap, then Mike Vrabel. And Mike Vrabel's very high on the list for me. We would be very lucky to get Mike Vrabel, but that's how big of an impact Jim Harbaugh would have with this team. It would be insane. You think Justin Herbert's good now? Just wait until Jim Harbaugh gets his hands on him. And Jim Harbaugh has been raving about how much he wants to do that, how much he wants to lead Justin Herbert in the NFL. How crazy would that be? And last I heard, guys, Jim Harbaugh wants the job. Last I've heard. Okay? Jim Harbaugh wants to be a Los Angeles Charger. It sounds like they're taking some time to enjoy the win of the national championship there. And maybe things will start going into motion here very, very soon in terms of interviewing with Jim Harbaugh, getting through the Rooney Rule requirements in terms of, that process of a head coaching hire, just to get, Harbaugh to come in here and sign on the dotted line very soon. I think, again, that's the most likely result here, and it's one that I want the most. But getting to know the rest of the candidates, I think, is also equally important. But in the end, who knows what's going to happen? Again, I think Jim's coming. I think I would be very happy. I think Chargers fans get ready for probably the most successful span of Chargers football that we've ever seen. But in the end, I also have to emphasize this. If we don't get Jim Harbaugh, just take a look at the legends surrounding the vacancies this season, man. We have never seen a stronger coaching carousel than we have right now. Some of the biggest names in football history are available, and the Chargers are going to have their pick of the litter. It's pretty insane because, yes, right now we may have the most attractive job in the entirety of the NFL. Some would say Washington because they got money and they got picks. We got the quarterback. And I think in the end, it's not something you want to gamble on, not even with the first overall pick. All right? And coaches know this. And that's why Jim Harbaugh wants to be the next head coach of the Chargers, or the next guy that we bring in is going to be a legend. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If we do not get Jim Harbaugh, and some people don't even want to entertain the thought, please answer in the comment section below. If we do not get Jim Harbaugh, what name from this list do you guys want the most? Okay? Let me know that in the comments. Well, guys, thank you for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty. Come on.